Welcome to
The Dork-Bajir Chronicles,
where an expert
and a new expert,
read through K.A. Applegate's stunning sci-fi serial.
Animorphs.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Come on, get in here.
Hello and welcome to the Dork-Bajir Chronicles, a podcast where we read through the Animorphs series one book at a time and then talk about it every week. Today, we'll be talking about book 54, The Beginning. I'm Tessa, the expert.
And I'm Braden, the other expert.
Braden, you have read every book in the Animorphs series.
Mm-hmm. I've read them, I've played them, I've sucked them, I fucked them.
You lived them. You
I
laughed
lived.
them. Did you love them?
Yes.
And with that, we'll go into Mail. Ooh yeah. Mail. Ooh yeah. Our first piece of fan mail comes from Blake Brinkley on Twitter, talking about this photo of the two mice brawling on the subway platform that won a wildlife photography award earlier in February.
Hell yeah.
It's just this gorgeous photo, and Blake Brinkley says, "This is how the series should have ended. A battle for the known universe, a millennia-old chess match between good and evil, families and loved ones torn apart, scattered throughout different dimensions." Okay, so it's very dramatic.
Yeah.
Ba.
And we'll let you, the listener of this podcast, find it yourself.
Find it yourself. It's
Go follow
on
Blake
our Twitter.
Brinkley. Go make Blake your man. And actually just read this, because Blake did good work. He should get the engagement.
We just retweeted it, so you can also check it out at our Twitter.
Yeah.
Second piece of fan mail comes from Josh, son of Chris, at WritingZard on Twitter, for the Animorphs ER episode for book 49. Everyone who says do literally anything to the blood bank is wrong. The best way to deal with that problem was to do nothing. If you recall, that was where Rachel was worried that they took blood from her when she was sick in the hospital in book 29, and they were opening for blood drives. Visser 3 has a hunch that the Animorphs are human. And the kids go into the blood, they go into the facility where the blood's being held and just wreck shit and get totally caught and everything sucks. WritingZard is saying that you shouldn't have done that. Proper Andalite bandits would have, if anything, they would encourage the Yeerks to waste time and resources looking for human gorillas. Point number 2, the Visser took 53 books to even consider the possibility that the bandits could be human, when cops figured it out in, Megamorphs 1. I want to say Cassie overhears cops talking in the mall. And they're like, you know what, it's above our pay grade. We're not going to worry about it. Yeah. It's also a very good thread. We have got quite a bit of fan mail today because y'all loved us talking about the Elements Chronicles last week.
Yes, you did. Great to see that we got some engagement from Movie Polls here in the end of times. Movie Polls says to our post about Elements Chronicles, Mikhail was always wondering how prey, simpleton Andalites became intelligent apex predator Andalites. He'd always say it didn't make sense in regards to natural evolution. And I guess now we know the answer. The Elements fucked intelligence into the species. I think he said that once. One time. And we kind of tore him down on that, honestly.
Egg on our face, because God fucked the Andalites. So
oh my god.
He
did. He did a book of Matthew. He did a Holy Ghost.
Oh wait,
money shot.
Sorry, I'm not super familiar with this. Is this from the Bible?
Yeah, the Bible.
Yes. Quaint religions. Our next piece of fan mail, we got 2 here from Kingle Mingle. Dr. Pete is fond of the theory that the Time Matrix was one of the Elemis spaceship bodies left in Z-space or real space after he got sucked into the black hole. It retains a link to the Elemist in his new God dimension, and thus allows the wielder to funnel some of his powers. I thought that was a cool idea.
Okay.
It's just like, it's a ship that's small enough Kryak didn't see it or something. Just barely escaped his notice. And it's one little orb of his ship body.
I guess he wasn't, Kryak wasn't a god yet, so I guess he could miss some scrapolas.
And then, now that he knows it exists, it could also be a key point in his chess game. I mean, he made sure that the Visser 4 was able to get it and find it and change history. But then the Drode went and fucked it all up, so...
Kingle Mingle also mentions that they really like the Elemist Chronicles dropping of the tidbit that the Script Na have been doing their weird, inscrutable thing since longer than God himself has been alive, and that he doesn't even understand what their deal is.
I do love that. That is... that's a tidbit I didn't even notice, but... Because the Script Na are also confirmed to be the ones who have visited Earth a couple of times and stolen some of our bovine animals. Axe confirms this in Book 54.
They're like the Greys.
Yeah.
Like what common what people who play XCOM would think of as Greys.
But for some reason, I also always think of them as big cockroaches. I'm probably getting them mixed up with somebody else.
Apparently, they have a 2-phase life cycle where, yes, they're like big cockroaches, and then they crack open and they become... what we classically,
and then they turn into the Greys from the cockroaches.
Yes.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yes.
Because they were the Skrit first and then the Na.
Skrit Na.
Brayden.
Yes.
If you were a Skrit Na, would you be Skrit or Na? And also, what's that summary for Book 54?
Well, I'd be a Skrit, and then I'd be a Na. We open up exactly where we left off in Book 53.
Which, if we can just briefly recap, right where the plan starts. Jake... dive-bombed Tom's car as a Peregrine Falcon. They sneak on board the pool ship.
Yes. The rest of the Animorphs stick around the pool ship, but Rachel has hugged onto Tom and is sticking with him because Jake realizes this guy is going to fuck us over. That is the entire plan of his, and that happens immediately. And by the end of the book... he has pulled around, Tom has captured the Blade ship, and is just wagging his dick at Visser 3. But then he realizes where we are is that the pool ship is completely offline. The engines are down, the weapons are down, the Yeerks, the 17,000 Yeerks in the pool are flushed, and the pool ship is completely helpless. So Tom is just gloating to Visser 3, who he's like Star Trek style hailed, but then he realizes, wait a minute. Oh no, there's a bunch of animals on board your ship that are fucking lions and tigers and bears. Oh god, the Animorphs are still alive. I see what's going on here. Rachel has already morphed bear behind him. It's too fucking late.
We do see part of this scene, from Rachel's point of view, where she's sneaks off as a flea, morphs human under a desk, and then starts morphing grizzly bear. She said, this whole time while it's going on, she's doing hey, the Yeerks are here, and they're slugs, and they control you, and we call people they've controllers. She's doing all of this, and it reads like I'm about to die scene. This is my life flashing before my eyes. How it's phrased, how she's describing the way that the Yeerks, take over, and what's happened till now.
And also, one last time, kids, every comic is somebody's first comic.
Can you fucking imagine? Because I was reading that and I was thinking that exact phrase, and I'm like, can you imagine that this is the one you pick up to start it all off?
Yeah. You think all the other covers have just been like, oh man, all the other covers are dorky. They clearly don't have their shit together. And then you pick up this book because you're like, yeah, they're changing it up. That's good. The beginning, they're obviously starting a new chapter. That's great.
Yeah, this is Act 2.
And yeah, that would be... God, I couldn't even imagine. I could not even imagine.
The cover is absolutely gorgeous, though. I like how they use an actual human photograph of Axe and then manipulate it into an Andalite rather than it just looking like a painted Andalite face that it's been looking.
Yeah. So Rachel does morph Grizzly, tries to take out Tom in one hit. it does not work. The fight that they have gives Tom's lieutenants enough time to also morph, also get involved in the battle. There's a bull, there's a polar bear, there's a leopard, a lioness, or a leopard or something.
I think there's both a lioness and a leopard.
Yeah.
And it's not quite a bull. I think it was an African wild ox.
Yeah.
Or
And
musk
they crack her fucking skull. They get her in the ribs. She puts up a good fight, but it's just too much to go up against both a polar bear and all these things.
She stabs the polar bear in the heart,
Yeah.
though. So that Yerk has to demorph, luckily putting the polar bear out of the fight. And then Tom morphs a snake to heal from his... There's a horrifying line here where she's beating up on Tom the human, and it talks about how blood gushes from his mouth and nose and eyes. I think they might have said eyes. It might have just said mouth and nose.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Tom morphs a snake, like a cobra, and sprays some sort of cobra that sprays poison into her bear eyes. She is blinded now. She's getting, like, basically just jumped in the alley, just fucking stomped on by all these beasts. And, like, the other Animorphs are like, Rachel, no, Rachel! And
No,
Rachel's like,
they're pretty
Tobias, help me! And Tobias is like, I can't, I'm so far away. And she's like,
and
no!
I paused at that moment, and I was just like, fuck you, Rachel. Like, that's so... Right at the very end there, Tobias gets to hear his girlfriend begging for, like, her life, for him to save her. And then Rachel says,
no, you just like, basically, no, you fucking nerd. Tell me where the snake is so I can bite it. And Tobias...
yeah,
which
Tobias
is exactly how Rachel
same.
would go out.
Yeah. Yeah. Jimmy, she doesn't call him a nerd, but yeah, it's basically, she bites it, she demorphs back to human, because at this point, the other animals, like, she's injured them enough that they're gone, so she demorphs to human, but the polar bear demorphed and remorphed and is now a polar bear again.
Yeah. And she's got the fucking dead Tom snake in her mouth.
In her mouth. As a human.
She is morphing into a human. And then she's killed.
She's fully human, because she does get to look at Tobias. And Tobias is morphed human. And she can see that he's crying. And she says she's sorry, I think. And the polar bear says, you fought well, human. And kills her.
And then we get that little scene with the Ellimist pauses time to, like, as a matter of formality, really, the events of the Ellimist Chronicles transpire within her mind. I don't know if this is just, like, a direct info download, or if, like, in the context of the Ellimist Chronicles, they're just sitting there shooting the shit.
I think it's more that one. I think it's kind of like the Dork-Bajir Chronicles, where it's telling a story because Rachel describes hearing a fantastical story.
Right, fair. And then she is gone.
Well, because first, you gotta say this line. You gotta say this line, dude.
No, you have to say this line. This is your line.
This is true. For all of us Animorphs fans who've been here the whole time, this is when the line goes. Rachel asks the Ellimist, like, did it have a point? Did my life have a point? Did anything I do even matter? And he says, yes. You were strong. You were brave. You were good. You mattered. So, anyone who wants to just, like, Control-Alt-Delete, right? If you ever want to just, like, yank on the physical tear duct of an Animorphs fan, you just need to, like, look him in the eye and just be like, hey, you mattered. And we all know what that's fucking talking about.
And in a lot of ways, I think this is really the end. This is the end of the Animorphs. All of this, everything after this, I think is...
The rest of it is just
denouement. Denouement, yeah.
Which I have a note here. I love denouement. Like, I think denouement is probably my favorite part of any kind of story, of all stories, because where do we go from here? You've had the big moments. What happens next? A story with a big old denouement is my favorite. Fullmetal Alchemist has it, and Animorphs has it.
They order Visor 1. What?
Sorry, right before we finish with Rachel here, there's a bit when she's doing her recap, just reminiscing about her life, basically. And she talks about how she knew. So it's like Jake came up with this plan and Rachel enacted it. And she's talking about how they didn't tell Cassie or Tobias about it because they knew that those two would try to stop it. Rachel has a quote, "Those two, by loving us, would have screwed everything up." The first 4 chapters of the book are narrated from Rachel's perspective. And then we switch over to Marco.
Marco, cracks wise a lot.
No, I think it is Jake, sorry. But Marco's still there, cracking wise.
Yeah. Jake realizes he cannot break down now. He's still in Tiger Morph. Cassie, he realized, like, if anybody says anything like, it's okay, or like, you did what you had to do, he realizes he would completely break down. But that's not what Cassie tells him. Cassie says there's more to do, basically. And he agrees. Toby arrives and lets them know we have captured the last of the controller Yerk soldiers. They are locked up they're still armed and everything, but they have surrendered. Jarahami is gone.
Yeah.
Jake says, Cassie, go find Eric. Marco, Axe, get Visor 1 to give up the Yerk in his head, and if he doesn't, rip it the fuck out and find somewhere to keep him.
And there's a bit about, like, I think they talk a little bit about you don't kill them. Jake's like, no, we don't, like, you're a prisoner. We don't just kill prisoners. And Visor 1 says, oh, yeah, but 17,000 innocent Yerks who've never been in a host before. Those are fine.
Yeah. That becomes an ongoing theme here in the last book. Like, what? Like, Jake wondering, why did I do that? What possessed me to do that? Yeah. So Jake goes to the remaining Yerks and makes them a deal. What they say, he says, surrender, you will be imprisoned, your Visor is captured, 7 will need to refill the pool, and we will allow you to morph. We will allow you access to morphing cubes to morph something that doesn't need to be attached to a host to experience color and sound and all that.
Well, that's a suggestion the Yerks have first, right? That's a demand that they, or a request that they make
Yeah.
as being Yerk soldiers, is they want to get morphing powers. And Jake's like, yeah, okay, yeah, we can do that. We'll do it. Cassie has her moment with Eric where she just asks him to, like, they're not going to betray that the Chi exist if he wants to get off the ship or hide himself somehow.
How does he get off the ship? Does he just jump out? Is there escape pods?
He could jump out. I'm thinking he might also just, like, turn invisible and hide.
Fair.
Somewhere and just not move and just power down anything that might flick off a sensor. Like, his technology is so incredibly more powerful than anybody else's technology.
Mm-hmm.
They have a moment where Cassie is like, why did you leech the power from, or Eric at first is surety because he's been kidnapped and held hostage and blackmailed into doing this. And then Cassie's, surety right back about, like, hey, you drained power from the cannons, and like, Rachel and Tom are dead because of you. Like, Rachel didn't have to die. We could have made it, she insinuates that they could have worked it out some other way.
And Eric, I think, shows, like, no remorse. Like, you guys put me in an untenable position. I regret nothing.
Yeah.
Goodbye. This is probably the last time I'll ever see you. Or any Animorph.
And it's the same with, like, when Jake asked Cassie to go and talk to Eric in the first place. He was also like, I'm not gonna apologize to that robot. It was still that same kind of dehumanizing of Eric, just to be, come to grips with what he had to do to end the war. So Jake's falling apart a little bit, and Marco is making little jokes and compartmentalizing really well, and is helping to just run this whole ship.
Axe. So they put Visor 1, the Yerk, into a briefcase that they find under a controller's desk. They find a briefcase. It's full of fucking cookies.
Yeah.
A Yerk got a sweet tooth, and before, like, when he kind of realized, like, shit might be going down, I don't know if I'll be around, he just filled a fucking briefcase with chocolate chip cookies.
Full of cookies. I love it. They do Marco morphs Gorilla and just punches Visser 1 in the face, knocks him out. And then they say, because, hey, Yerk, we know you can still hear us. You come out right now, or we'll completely, we'll kill you. So Visser 1 comes out, and they put him in the briefcase. Where you gotta wonder if he, like, zooped around eating up the cookie crumbs.
I think they dumped out the cookies. Oh, the cookie crumbs.
If there's any little cookie crumbles.
Mm-hmm. It's at this point, Alaran, Axe, Jake asks Axe, open up 2 channels. One to the Andalite, the entirety of the Andalite civilian channel, and one to the military command right now. And Axe says, I am not allowed to do that unless I am ordered to by a prince. And Jake says, the prince is ordering you. And Axe says, yes, fucking sir.
Yeah, Axe likes following orders, which makes me think that he would also like following orders. So he opens up the 2 channels, and we're in Marco's head right now. They come across this one officer who thinks that they're Yerks, obviously, because they're hailing from the Yerk pool ship, right? And Axe is trying to say stuff, and it's not quite working.
Axe is trying to convince him. Jake is trying to convince him. And then Alaran wakes up.
Motherfucking Alaran stands up and is just like, yo, connect me to the head boss.
Yeah.
The head boss jumps online.
And tells Axe and Jake what to say to make them, like, buy it. Like, you're gonna tell them you are surrendering the pool ship to them. You're gonna tell them all the bug fighters as well, and they're gonna self-destruct. The bug fighters are gonna self-destruct. You're just gonna hand this to them you're gonna make this too good to pass up.
I don't think Alaran goes, like, into that super detail, but he definitely does, like, have advice for them about, like, how to do it. But then the high command comes on and is just like, excuse me, we cannot. And Marco, who just like, hey, everybody on the Andalite homeworld.
Yeah. And Marco, I believe this is his, is this his chapter right now? Yeah. He says something like, yo, we're on TV to the Andalite homeworld, what up, world star, just acting like a big ol' shit, but, like, in a way that makes it so that he doesn't, like,
so
it's a relatively political way of letting the general know the entire world is seeing you.
Yeah.
The Andalite, do you think that Andalites would be fine with you looking this gift horse in the mouth and just Dork-Bajiring Earth?
Yeah, so now the general's got to think. And then Jake just whips this fucking baller speech out of nowhere, it seems. Like, I have no idea if he would have prepared this in his head. I don't know if Jake is quite that prepared at 16. But, like, it's split up into these discrete paragraphs where Marco translates, like, Jake's ass whipping. Like, he's just being hype man / completely being so in the moment that he can't think about 5 minutes ago when he saw his teammate get murdered.
Yeah, guys, you should be reading the fucking books. Even now, here,
this is a
at the end of all
podcast.
Things. Yes.
Read the book while you're listening to us. You'll enjoy it better. Like, Marco and Jake are such a good team of advisor and leader. Like, Cassie's great too. Don't get me wrong. But I think Marco is more like your advisor, and Cassie is the one who you would go to, like, is this the right thing? Or did we think of any, like, more humane options here? But Marco is like, he's like, I don't want to call myself ruthless, but I can see the ruthless possibilities. And I'm like, but I think that's the same thing.
Anyway, they end up engaging with the Andalite High Command. They meet them at, I believe, like, around Mercury, was it?
It was something like that.
Yeah. They bring the pool ship out around Mercury, and they meet the Andalite forces who arrive, and they let them know, okay, here it is. Here's the deal we made with the Yeerks. They're all going to be released, and they're all going to be given morphing powers, and then they will be surrendered to your da-da-da. And the guy's like, no, you had no right to make that deal. The fuck is wrong with you? Who are you people?
The fact that you have morphing powers is illegal.
Yeah. What the fuck is wrong with you guys? And basically just the whole time completely resists Jake's authority at any point in time. And then Axe stands up and is like, Commander, I would like to issue a formal challenge to you. And the commander, Axe explains, if a challenge is that basically if he doesn't change his mind, then it has to go to a vote. This decision has to go to a vote with the entirety of the Andalite voting citizenry to make the decision instead of us. But if I fail, if whichever of our sides fails, either I or him, if this goes to a challenge, will be exiled when this goes off.
Yeah, like Axe would get his tail blade cut off and
Which
be
is
exiled.
fucked.
I think the other guy, I don't think it would be that drastic, the receiver of the challenge, but he would be like fired. His name would be dragged through the mud. So challenges are like incredibly intense deals.
Right. And the commander says, you can't issue a challenge. You're not a prince, and you don't have the backup of a prince. And then Alaran stands up. I'm still a prince.
I'm a fucking war prince.
I don't think they ever bothered demoting me.
No.
So
He was a war prince in a like Andalite Chronicles, and just, he'll just keep being war prince.
And there's this real big dick flex moment where the commander is like, I'm going to have to go talk to some people. And there's just this long pause where he's obviously expecting them to leave the room. And then Jake is like, this is our ship. You go.
Yeah. So they leave, and Jake's like, hey, Alaran, Lauren, thanks for being a stand-up dude there. And Lauren has this, like, little mopey speech about just, like, like, I'm whatever happens to me, I'm always gonna be known as the Dork-Bajir Butcher. Like, I never thought I was gonna be free. Like, I'll help you however I can. And then he just cracks his tail over his head. He's like, who did that? Me. I did that. And I'm like, Lauren.
Aww.
Man, that's the first time you've been, like, free for this long in how many years?
You're just the most precious little war criminal. Oh my god.
But also,
oh my god,
the whole thing that Lauren had going on reminds me of conversations I've had recently about the ending of BoJack Horseman, or just like the idea of redemption for someone deemed irredeemable. Like, when Lauren says, I will always be the butcher of Dork-Bajir, yeah, you will. But you're also the guy who can crack his own tail blade now. Like, you're also the guy helping to end the war where the Yeerk refugees, I don't know what you would call them, like the soldiers who stopped fighting now, where you're letting them live in peace somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. And
you're helping make that happen.
The commander ends up sending back like a minor like aide, like assistant to the commander general, whatever. And they say, all right, you'll get the Yeerks will be, that basically says that's fine. You're going to get 4 morphing cubes. You're going to get a team.
Because the more
Axe is now a prince.
A prince, which is cool.
Also, the dome ship they arrive in is the Elfangor.
Yeah. It's named the Elfangor, and Axe is just so pleased because that's such a high honor to get a dome ship named after you.
Yeah.
So he's just like, wow.
Also, the fact that he becomes a prince and he is officially declared the liaison to Earth.
Yep, he is the go-between between Andalite Homeworld and Earth.
And the cubes can only be used, they specify, to give Yeerks and Taxons morphing capabilities so that they can be not Yeerks and Taxons.
They had to make 4 new ones because the original morphing cube was on the Blade ship.
Yeah.
That did speed off into in the middle of nowhere,
Mm-hmm.
like Z-Space. So at the end of Chapter 8, the war is officially over.
And the book. The
And
end.
the book. It's
this
just a
was
bunch
a
of
short
blank
one.
pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a big long letter from K.A. Applegate to the reader, which starts off really strong. And then she says, "You may now demorph." And then she takes you with her as she goes grocery shopping.
Yeah.
And just talks about her day. And it's like, it's fine. But it's a little weird. And then she's like, just talking about, like, she just keeps squeezing the pears. And I just want to shake the book and be like, Catherine, stop squeezing pears.
Yeah.
That's how they're going to get bruises. You're at the supermarket. And she's just talking about, like, how hard it is to be, like, a writer and a mom and, but, like, how are your kids? And
But
it's like,
no,
this is a weird...
we're lying to you.
This is
we're
a
fucking
lie!
lying. We
You
mentioned
thought this? We
you
were
fucking
lying.
fool.
Here at the end of it all, this is top 10 anime betrayals. We are betraying you.
We're betraying you. We're hitting you in the back of the head like fucking Cat in the Hat on that pudgy kid who plays every pudgy kid. So, the end of Animorphs. We enter. It is already 10 years later.
No, it's 1 year.
What?
It's 1 year. It's 1 year later. 10 years later? Are you joking? It's 1 year.
No.
They talk about, Marco says, I'm a 17-year-old. And then 2 years later, because spoilers is another time jump, now he's 19. Yeah.
I could have sworn I read 10.
Literally 1 year, dude.
When the fuck did I gotta double check that. Okay, anyway.
You don't believe me? The expert? So, chapter 9, it talks about things happen quickly. They go to, the mall in Washington with the Capitol building and the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of cameras and microphones. They're all talking. Tobias takes off. He's morphed back into a hawk, and he takes off once they touch down in Washington. The next day, an Andalite scout ship reported finding a human body floating in space.
Yes.
Young, female. The Andalites brought her to California. They have a ceremony for her. She is cremated, put to a little decorative urn. The
and
president
then also
comes.
and then for some reason also a coffin still.
No, it's just like a memorial plaque, I think.
Yeah.
It's just like a headstone. It's kind of the thing.
Okay.
The president of the United States was there, who gives a speech.
The funeral of Rachel ends with Tobias. He's flying in circles overhead.
Cassie sees him coming. She was watching the skies for him to see if he would, because they haven't seen him in like the week or so that it's been since they're wrapping up.
And then this seems like this was a moment that was supposed to be sweet, but I don't personally know how to feel about it, because Tobias lands on her urn, her earthly remains, in front of her parents and the rest of the family. Somebody tries to go and stop him, but Jake is like, no, it's okay. And then he takes her earthly remains to God knows where.
I mean, it says that he looks at Rachel's mom. She was crying, had been all along. She sobbed and nodded her head, giving her permission.
There's
so she
more
did a nod.
Family and friends, though.
Well,
that's kind of fucked.
Tobias then looks at Cassie, and Cassie says, yes, Tobias, she would want it. And he somehow is able to pick up this urn and fly away into the sky. And then we go to chapter 10, 1 year later. You motherfucker, read it and weep. Not 10 years later, no sir.
Okay.
1 year later.
Okay. You got me.
I got you.
Congratulations.
This is second top 10 anime betrayal.
What's your cash prize?
$20.
Okay, well, good luck getting that from KA.
No, I thought you were going to give me money.
No.
Okay, so now it's 1 year later.
It's 1
and
year later. Marco is narrating, telling us about the big dick life he is living.
'Cause I'm the man.
Yeah.
I'm just going to play that song in the background.
He's doing all the appearances. He's going on Letterman. He's doing TV shows. He's playing himself in He's playing himself in like little bits. He's playing
he was the script consultant on the
Right.
Steven Spielberg movie about Animorphs, but then he's playing a bit part in like this TV show where they solve crimes, and he like is the special effects budget and turns into animals.
Yeah. Which
is wild.
This immediately becomes like a lot of like, I feel like this is what's the word I'm looking for? This immediately becomes what every like kid who probably read the Animorphs for years was thinking like after the final book would be like. This is the kid
lifestyle.
And then
he's
the
got
dream.
like,
yeah.
He's got, I don't know if it's now or later, but he's got a fucking butler that he named Weatherby. That's not his name.
His
The
name
guy
is like,
has a name. Marco just calls him Weatherby because he's such an asshole.
He says it like it's a joke, but it's fucking... He just doesn't call this guy by his name.
Like, that, you shouldn't do that if you're an employer.
What the fuck? He's driving Maseratis. He's being in movies.
Fly honeys.
Dating fly honeys. He gets a book written about him.
He writes his own book with the help of a ghostwriter or a couple.
And it's #1 for like a whole year or something.
No, it's #1 for like 12 weeks or something. And then Cassie wrote a book, which was only -- for like, I think Marco's was #1 for 7 weeks and Cassie's was only #1 for like 5 weeks or something.
Yeah, I think Cassie's was like, Cassie's never broke 7 because it was just about
that was it.
The psychology of being how nice it is to be an animal. It wasn't all the action-packed adventures of the Animorphs.
Yeah.
And that's when we start getting into what happened to everyone else. Cassie went to school. She became a vet.
Well, she
is becoming
school.
A vet.
It's only been 1 year,
right?
Remember.
Sorry. She is becoming a vet. She is an official liaison of the Dork-Bajir here on Earth. She helps arrange like getting them more living space when they need it. They mostly live in like national parks, like the Redwoods.
They've mainly taken over Yellowstone.
Yes,
I think
Yellowstone.
They're just all in Yellowstone right now.
The Redwoods of California.
Which I think it's just all of Yellowstone, isn't it?
I don't know national parks. I think there's Yellowstone. Is there a Redwood National Park?
No, I think all the Redwoods live in Yellowstone.
I know Zion National Park from Fallout New Vegas, and that's it.
Oh.
Yeah. And Yellowstone, obviously. Yeah, so Dork-Bajir live out there. They've become a big tourist attraction.
There's a wait list of 1.5 years.
That's for Andalites, isn't it?
No, that was was to view the Dork-Bajir. But yeah, Andalites are also tourists.
Andalites love getting human morphs and eating food.
Like, they just love eating cigarette butts, which I think Jake says this later on. It's like the dying tobacco industry. It's like, oh, just you wait, Jake. They're just about to invent jewels, and they'll be right back.
Here's where we get the depressing part. Cassie and Jake do not talk.
They haven't really talked in a very long time.
At least a year.
I mean, I think they talked like a little bit, like maybe every once in a while at a press event that used to kind of happen, but
they are not married.
They are not.
The key.
They are not seeing each other. It's at this point with the 1 year mark. They're doing like a tribunal for Visser 1's crimes. Yeah.
Tobias, nobody knows where he is. Obviously, he can just be a hawk and live out in buttfuck nowhere, and nobody even notices. Marco sees Jake every once in a while, but Jake isn't really doing a lot with his life. He's not making appearances. He's not a consultant on any sort of like alien human boards or anything.
He's not taking any brand deals.
Yeah. He took the Maserati when they offered it. Marco made sure of that. But
yeah, but like
I think later on we find out he's living with his parents.
Yeah, he's still like in his parents' house, just kind of hanging out. I mean, like he's only 17. So
yeah, that's fair.
Fine. But yeah.
Hey, where the fuck are Marco's parents?
Yeah,
do they live
really?
Does he buy his? Does he do that thing where he's like, and then I bought my parents a nice house?
He probably would.
He probably would, but like I feel like it's weird that they don't mention it.
It is a little. I do, thinking on it now, I do kind of wish that they would have mentioned it. Like fucking Eva, where's she at?
Yeah,
what
probably
happened to her?
Dealing with a lot of shit.
Probably, but I'm wondering if she ever would have gone public with like her own claim to fame. Probably not.
No, yeah, that feels like something that an adult woman who has been mind controlled for a good 5 years wouldn't want to do immediately afterward. Like Marco and the other Animorphs to an extent kind of have that luxury of like, yeah, I was a fucking war hero. I did it. That's fucking awesome.
We saved all of Earth. There's talk about like they want to carve.
Yeah.
There's talk about they want to carve Jake's face into Mount Rushmore.
Yes, exact. That was pretty cool. Eva's story is basically like, I literally did nothing for years. I was basically in a coma, but I could watch everything happening. I could see her having an audience if she did go public and tell her story, but it's obviously a much less marketable story.
Well, and I don't think, on further thinking about it, I definitely don't think she would want to in the first place.
Yeah. Oh my god, how did they ever figure out the whole Marco's dad is married to 2 women now thing?
Yeah.
I would love...
What happened to Nora? She was nice lady.
I'd love to visit that storyline. But it's
time for other kinds of crimes now.
Yeah, sorry.
It's time for Visser 1's crimes.
Yes, okay. So, they have Visser 1 set up in this little purple, box about the size of a hardcover book that that's his prison, but it still lets him, speak and hear and see a little bit.
He is being fed Kajorians. The Andalites made it, and that's part of why it took so long for the trial to happen, is because
they couldn't
they had to figure out a way that...
How?
Visser 1 has to be able to be there and understand what's going on around him and communicate.
And
also not die. And also not infest somebody else.
And also not be on the Andalite homeworld. Because, motherfucker, the Earthlings took this one home. This is our trial, baby! Whoa!
He's got 6 lawyers surrounding him. There's this one lady lawyer that's his head lawyer. And he's just there in his little purple box. Yeah. And then there's 5 judges from different countries. And they are in...
a weirdly small room. You think they'd have... I know that they have rooms big enough in, the UN or whatever to hold enough press.
Yeah, what it was called, the building they were in was called something? The Huge? What was the name of it?
The Hog?
The Hog. There you go.
Hag.
It was the whole Hog they were in, because they were in, Norway or Sweden or someplace.
Yeah, they made the Hag for the Nazis.
Oh, yeah, for all of their war crimes.
I'm pretty sure.
So.
Don't quote me on that. Delete this. They are in the Hag, which may or may not have been invented for the Nazi war crimes trials, if I remember correctly.
Now, Jake is sitting there and having his own, we hear his point of view a year after the war. How's he doing? Pretty bad.
Yeah.
He just keeps thinking, they're listing all of Visser 1's crimes. 16, made a guy cut his own dick off. 17, made him eat his own cut off dick. It's fucked up.
There are 25 counts against him, and they're all pretty broad.
Yeah. Some of them get a little bit more niche. It's it was plotting for manslaughter, and then another one was actual manslaughter.
Yeah. You can't plot for manslaughter.
No, manslaughter is, but
plotting
for
mass terrorism and
Yeah.
then doing mass terrorism, experimentation on unwilling humans.
They call Jake up to be the first witness, and Jake, his memories just kind of take hold of him, and it's hard for him to talk. He remembers that Tobias is the one who morphed the cat first, and I don't know why, but that part just really fucking got to me. Visitor 1 doesn't like that Jake is being called up. He's like, this guy has got as many if I'm a war criminal, so is he, is his point of view. Which really shakes Jake up, and he does a bad job on the stand.
We don't actually hear from Visitor 1 here in the end. It does not say
no, he
Visitor
talks to
1
his
speaks.
lawyer.
The lawyer says it.
He confers privately to his lawyer, because that's how you have to do it in court, I think.
Does he? I don't think
they circled him, and they assumedly chatted quietly about it. That's how she knew to mention it.
But yeah, that kind of freaks him out, and he says that he does go through the hoops, but that he just says yes and no, and doesn't put a lot of passion into it, which is actually what you're supposed to do in trials. That's actually good. Just like having simple questions that you can just answer yes or no to, especially on these broad crimes. Because, like, statistics show, like, juries prefer that. They don't like to feel like what they're seeing is is a kangaroo court where they're just saying, like, like, Visitor 1 is the greatest villain on Earth since Hitler, or, like, this guy is it disengages them. It makes them feel like they're not... most human beings, when they're told, can you do this thing objectively? Can you da-da-da? They will say yes, and they will have a level of commitment to doing it, especially in, like, a country where, like, a jury is sort of considered, like, a public duty. People who end up on juries, like, will end up taking that seriously, because there's a lot of shit, especially for a crime like this, where they would go into that. So the idea of Jake being a little stiff on the stand isn't actually that bad. It shouldn't be.
When he leaves the room, he does feel very apologetic and knows he did a bad job. It's assumed that they would have been coached by a lawyer beforehand. Like,
not coached.
I get
Bad word.
Not coached.
Not
coached. Somebody would have talked to them about how to talk on the stand. Like, Jake is just feeling like he did a bad job, and we can assume that he would know how to do a good job.
What if Visitor 1 is actually some fall man, and the entirety of the Animorphs Chronicles is just their story? They were actually the Yeerks in charge the entire time, and Visitor 1 is just their fall man, and this is Jake's coached story from his lawyer.
Marco and Cassie have a plan. Marco and Cassie meet up before they go into the Hog and have that conversation, and the trial starts. They have their own private conversation, and, like, Cassie's like, "Hey, how's Jake?" And Marco's like, "Hey, like." Well, Cassie asks, "When was the last time you saw him?" And Marco's like, "What? The last time I saw him, where he also saw me?" Because he's been spying on his boy, and he knows that Jake is, like, depressed. He doesn't know what to do. They hatch a plan. So when Jake leaves the courtroom, because they break after he's on the stand for an hour, and after that they break, I think, for the day, which is wild because they just started. But anyway, so they break, and he's like, "Oh no, I did a bad job," and he walks out, and Marco's a gorilla and fucking punches him in the head. He wakes up
and he's already dropped into a fucking, like, swelling water, crashing against the walls, like against a cliff face.
Yeah, I don't know how this happened, but he wakes up and he's only like 5 feet away from the water, and he's not falling very hard, so, like, he doesn't get injured. But how did the kids drop him like that? Don't understand.
Do they have, like, a California condor morph? Just, like, something that can pick up an entire human being?
They just had, like, a rock, just like the great big flying bird from D&D. Yeah. So Jake morphs dolphin so that he can survive in the ocean. His friends are there also in dolphin morph. He can see them off to the side. And the dolphin's natural optimism gets to him. He's trying to be mad, but it definitely perks him up. And they all go to the beach and have a big old conversation, don't they?
They talk about, Yeah, they talk about you fell apart on the stand there. You did not do good, and you need to pick it the fuck up if we are going to make sure that Visor 3 goes down for everything that he did. Yeah.
Jake is really rattled at being called a war criminal, so they talk a bit about that.
Yes, exactly.
Marco tries to reassure him, but he catches a look on Cassie's face and just, like, still feels like shit. It's really awkward. There's one point where Jake says, despite myself, I was remembering kissing her. Which just fucking break my heart. Why don't you?
Shove a knife right into my ass. Why don't you?
Why don't you?
Why don't you? But they go back and they do well. Well enough. I don't know how big a part of this is. Because, like, a lot of other people were actually way closer to Visor 1. Probably, like, controllers and stuff. So, like, I don't know how important just, like, somebody who is always at least, like, 1,000 feet away from Visor 1, like, who Visor 1 never even knew existed. I don't know how important that their testimony would actually be, but they get him on 22 of the 25 charges. What do you think those 3 charges he got off on were?
He probably was not arrested for jaywalking, for taking off the mattress tag, or for murder.
Right. But all the other shit, yeah.
All of the other shit,
that makes sense.
For sure. Like, he plotted a lot of murders.
Yeah.
So they definitely would have gotten him for that.
It opens up now, again, 2 years later.
Very briefly, I want to mention something I think we missed.
Oh.
Where the
I
Texans...
didn't want to talk about
I
this.
know, it's extremely sad. The Yerks all morph big snakes and other animals. The Texans all morph big snakes, and now there's a protected jungle in Brazil.
Do the Yerks also morph big snakes?
I think the Yerks. I just know that they morph something. I got the like idea that they were just a bunch of different snakes as well, like anacondas and other stuff. But I don't actually remember.
I don't think they would do that. I think they I don't know what they would morph, but
the Texans are all snakes, and there's a little bit of the Brazilian jungle that's saved for them. Arbron, he's an othlet. He can't morph a snake, but he went with them anyway. And he was killed by poachers after 3 months.
He was murked by fucking randos in the woods. It's not even like a scene. Marco just mentions it.
And he wondered, it's like a 2-sentence thing. And one follow-up sentence where he wonders if Arbron would be happier now. He never talked to Arbron face-to-face like Jake did in book 53, where Arbron was proud to be a Texan. Like, he was, like, happy to be living there with his brothers and sisters. Yeah. This book sucks. Anyway, now we time jump. After the trial, 2 years have passed. Now all the kids are 19. Jake's moved out of his parents' place. He can't remember the name of Cassie's new boyfriend. Or maybe he doesn't want to remember. Huh?
Sorry, I'm just still thinking about Arbron. Yeah,
it's
Jake has gotten a job with the U.S. military. The Andalite human relations have solidified a bit. The Andalites have ships that actually patrol the Earth galaxy. The humans have more access to Andalite technology. They have an entire team of morph-capable humans from like the military, whom Jake is an instructor for. Some of them are even actually older than him.
Well, pretty much all of them are older than him.
Yeah,
Some of them twice his age.
Yeah.
I think. And they call him Professor.
Yeah. He is doing pretty well, all things considered.
He's okay. He's moved out of his parents' house. He's got his own house that's nearby Marco's. Thankfully, Marco has stopped sending supermodels his way. But he's got his job.
Axe is still a prince, still the liaison between Earth and the Andalites. And yeah, he's doing pretty well. He doesn't seem to... Personally, I'd be pretty busted up about the fact that I got like to be a prince pretty much on a technicality, but he seems to have made the best of it. Like, he still has, like, a reputation comparable to Elfangor. He goes on about how he doesn't feel comfortable being, like, too harsh with his subordinates, because, like, any sort of, like, reprimanding would be coming from, basically, like, that'd be saying if, basically, like, MacArthur called you an asshole.
Yeah, it'd be like he's really trying to watch himself. Did you talk about their mission and what they're doing right now?
Yes. Oh, Axe is personally very interested in finding the Blade Ship. The Blade Ship got away. They killed Rachel and Tom was dead, so they didn't end up blowing up the pool ship. But the Blade Ship still got away. There have been reports about it. It seems it's gone pirate somewhere out there in the wide universe.
They're trying to just follow its trail and dog around,
Yeah.
and then they find something.
They find what they believe. They find that some alien ship was found around the dark side of the moon.
I think it was Jupiter's moon.
Jupiter's moon, yes, sorry.
Somewhere.
So they go check it out, and
It wasn't Jupiter's moon. It must have been super far away.
yeah, fair. And they realize it's not a ship that they recognize. They don't recognize, like, the mechanics of it or, like, the architecture, but they do get a very slight signal of DNA on the ship. And
Further scans show it's Earth DNA.
Earth DNA, to be specific, yes. So Axe says, I gotta take this one on personally. I gotta get on that ship. And he does, and they get in there, and they realize that the DNA is just a small sample of hair. Long, whitish, almost translucent, hollow hair. And Axe realizes the last morph that was on, the morph that killed Rachel, was a polar bear. This is a fucking trap. We gotta get out of here now. Bang, 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 bang. And we cut to Jake.
Then we cut to Jake's chapter where he's just finishing class.
Yeah.
And then these two Andalites come down out of the sky like angels. Andalites in this 2-year gap, they've grown wings now. They've got little tiny wings
God damn
that
it.
appear on their ankles, so they fly by their feet. It's adorable.
Yeah. He meets two Andalites who explain to him what just happened. That Axe, he's part of the Intrepid. Was it called the Intrepid?
The ship was called the Intrepid, yeah.
The Intrepid was attacked by the Blade Ship in this trap, and Axe was taken away. Axe was taken away, and the Blade Ship, a Yerk ship, went into, what's the name of this race?
It was like, so there's this race called the Calbrids, I believe
Yeah.
it was, and they have, like, just washi taped around their own little bit of the galaxy to be like, fuck you, Andalites, we don't want you in here. And the Andalites are like, cool, you're not allowed in our space either.
Yeah.
And they think it's a trap that this Blade ship that took the members of the Intrepid went into Calbrid territory. And these Andalites say specifically, no Andalite can bring an Andalite technology into the Kelbrid territory, or it will start a war. Like, this is our peace. This is the peace treaty we've come up with.
Yeah. But they explain, I mean, if somebody in an experimental Yerk-style ship that just happens to be chilling out in Earth space right now with a full gas tank and it's full of food that humans could eat was up there, and they had a human pilot, and the one Andalite morphs into a human, then nobody could say shit. Especially if they had a team of people who would be interested in maintaining, especially if they had a team that had, like, an excuse to be personally invested in finding the Blade Ship and Axe, that would be completely unsuspicious and wouldn't start a war. So basically what they're saying is, we want you, don't say it out loud, but we want you to go to Kelbrid space in your own Blade Ship and find the Blade ship and get Axe and probably destroy the Blade ship.
And it's not quite a Blade ship. This new one is boomerang shaped. It's smaller. It's a bit faster. It's not quite the same kind of weapons capacity, but it's really cool looking. And Jake is like, yeah, I'm picking up what you're throwing down. And the one Andalite just starts to morph human, just to not let himself so he can go on this trip.
Because he's like, I am the last survivor of this ship. This is a shame to me. The only way I can undo this shame is by fixing it, and I can't. By saving Axe, and I can't save Axe as an Andalite.
This is when we get to the last chapter of each character, from each character's point of view. We go to Cassie first. She's 19. She's dating a guy named Ronnie. Now, I feel like they were engaged. This was trivia that I've heard that they were engaged, but they weren't, right? I didn't miss that?
No, cool. I do not. Yeah, no, they're not engaged, I don't believe.
She's 19, he's 25. I'm like, as an adult now, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
But, like, okay, Applegate. Here's Ronnie, who calls her Cass, not Cassie, which makes me think that Cassandra was her name, and then everybody just called her Cassie when she was a kid, and then now that she's grown up and got a big government job, she's going by Cassandra more?
Maybe, yeah.
That was an idea.
But yeah, Cassie realizes that there is a peregrine falcon flying around somewhere there shouldn't be one. And she says, friend's coming, so you might want to not be here. And Ronnie's like, oh yeah, your ex who saved the planet. Cool, yeah, right? Talk to him. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'll let you guys catch up.
It's like Harvey Dent. It's like, oh, you used to date Batman? Oh, yeah, okay. I'll just hang out over here.
Yeah.
Don't catch feelings for your cool ex. Yeah. Jake talks to her.
Jake explains the situation, and Cassie's like, okay, so you're getting the old team back together, and we're all going into space. And Jake's like, no, I'm just explaining the situation. Like, fuck, you're coming into space. You have a life.
Yeah, you're the only one of us that made it, Cassie. You have to stay here.
You're the only one I'm not gonna ask to come into space.
He just wants...
As the last of the girls, you must maintain your womb on our world. It's like... That's me extrapolating.
You're the only one here who, like, made it, right? Like, you have a life now. You can't throw that away for this.
Marco's rich, but you think he's happy?
I know for sure that you talked to Tobias. I need to know where he hangs out. And she tells him.
They find him.
Can we briefly say, what did you think of the whole Ronnie Cassie situation?
It didn't really cross my mind.
Like,
it's just
a very feel like anything.
It's just a very normal dating situation compared to everything else in this entire series.
I don't know. As a kid, I never liked it. He calls her Cass. That's not her name. Like, it never seemed like she liked him that much, or was that like super into them. And yeah, it's just a tiny snapshot of their relationship that we saw. But like, come on, what, like. Cassie, are you just, like, I'm thinking she's also processing and depressed. She's just trying to, like, go about it a healthier way. But this is one of the things where she's like, oh, I'm just in this kind of rebound relationship. But it happened to last 2 years now. And
who the hell else is she going to date? Like, I would never tell, like, a 5-year difference is a lot. It's a woman.
At this, like, it's only a lot because... that they're the age that they're
but
at,
like,
but it's like
to a woman who has been through war,
right? Like, exactly.
I'm not gonna tell her, and like,
it's more like it didn't feel like they liked each other. Like, there was no kind of, they didn't have a cutesy moment at all together to be like, oh, this is a new relationship between them. And yeah, maybe it wouldn't have been earned in the book, but it just felt really like, ugh, Cassie, come on, you don't like this Ronnie guy. Just be single for a little bit.
He seemed fine. And it's been 3 years. How long do you want her to be? What's a bit to be single?
I don't know. However long it takes you to, like, help yourself heal from trauma until you feel like you're ready to be vulnerable again. But Cassie's just always ready to be vulnerable. She's just, like, Jake like demorphs in front of her, and she's like, "All right, here we go."
Uh,
Cassie's my hero.
They go get Tobias. Honestly, it's pretty uneventful. He's just been living out in the woods. He goes on about how, like, this mouse has been outsmarting me for days. He's just completely, he's gone feral.
Yeah, he acquired a bear morph at some point. I don't know how. But he's...
There's some fuckers in the woods playing the flute.
Yeah.
It brings me pleasure, but I don't like that the flute is attached to a person.
The flute reminds me that I'm a human, and I don't want to remember that anymore, because I'm sad all the time.
Oh, hey, Toby, and a wolf. Who is it? Oh, it's Jake? Whatever, dude. What do you want? Do you want to come to space and save Axe? Yes. Okay. End of scene.
And then they go see Marco, who's perfectly well adjusted. He's doing just fine. He's got the butler named Weatherby.
Yes.
He's got maids.
A pool.
He's got a pool. He's got even more cars. He's doing great. So that's why he's morphing a lobster for no reason.
Yeah, he's just like... he's
Marco.
going on about how, like, I just wanted to grab my keys. They fell in the pool. And Jake's like, you miss it. You know you do. And I've got a way that we're going to engage with that again. To feel like we're doing something again in the world. And Marco does resist it. He's like, no, I'm living the best life of all of us. I'm fucking rich and famous and I'm doing books and I have a new TV show coming up. And
he gets really mean for a bit when like, he sees Tobias come down. He gets really mean at them when they're not believing him. And he knows that they're not believing his lies. And he's just like, fuck you guys.
And he says, fine, I'll do this on one condition. Jake, you cannot question yourself at all. The reason we succeeded at Animorphs, despite all of us being... And this is... He gets a bit more of a speech that I think, like, makes this scene a bit more important than, like, the scene with Tobias, or even Cassie, really. Where he's like, Jake, you have not been a leader since they told you that killing 17,000 Yeerks was a war crime. Which, I don't know, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't give a shit. The reason we succeeded as the Animorphs for so long, being children who could only become animals and fight an army with laser guns, wasn't because any of us were good at it. It's because you as our leader followed your gut.
Yeah. I need you to be the Jake that you were there. I can't have you try and think about, the future consequences as much. I need you to just make the best call in the moment. And
Jake grabs a team. He goes to his class of humans who can morph, and he says, I am leaving space. This is a black money mission, by which I mean a no money mission. We are going to steal a foreign power's ships, go into another foreign power's airspace, save a guy who's not supposed to be there. We're not going to get any recognition. This is definitely illegal. Who's in? Everybody but 2 people volunteer for the mission.
Yeah, so he picks the 2 based on their skill and also based on the fact that they don't have a lot of family members that they're close to. Because Jake knows that this is, there might not be comeback.
There is a woman named Jean.
She's French.
Jean. And a guy named...
Santarelli.
Hey, it's Santarelli. Hey, how's it going? I'm Santarelli.
I think this might be...
I'm Italian.
It's a fun fact. It might be Tobias is incorrectly credited with having a formal last name if you Google him. And I'm pretty sure his last name is Santarelli that Google has just given him, which is like completely incorrect. It's some kind of weird misupload.
Him and Santarelli get married.
Yeah, that's what happens. It's not his dad. It's his boyfriend.
Yeah.
So we have... Jake is like, I could have brought more of my class, like more of my students with me, but with only bringing 2, that brings the total team number to 6. And that's how many we had last time, so it feels right.
They know from the Andalite. Andalite command is like halfway okay with this mission. They like halfway know about it. Like I feel like this is black money. This is off-site shit. It establishes a little earlier in the book that there's still like there's a lot of terroristic forces that have arisen in response to aliens, like straight up like psycho evangelicals, environmentalist groups, stuff like that. All these people that would be upset about aliens living on Earth now. And they capture this shuttle and bring it into space, and then to attach to the blade ship, and then the new blade ship, and then take it away, and they drop the shuttle back into Earth's atmosphere to let it burn up so that people can say some terrorists got it, but then they didn't know how to use it, so they burned up in atmosphere.
Yeah, it's very convenient. They have like the Andalites come. Oh no, the ones who are guarding the shuttle, they come out and Marco gets the drop on them from behind, which just embarrasses the Andalite Nothlet.
Yeah.
Like that's so disgraceful that an Andalite would be caught from behind.
Yeah.
And the ship, they're coming up to it in the shuttle, and before, I forget his name, but the Andalite pilot, before he docks with the ship, he shares his Andalite custom to name a ship before you board it, because that's good luck.
And they call this one the Rachel.
And the Rachel's been decked out. She's got food. She's got seats for humans.
And what do you know? It's got 2 dozen boxes of Cinnabon.
Just those Andalites love their Cinnabon. So now these guys hang out in space for like 6 to 8 months. Just in the ship.
A long fucking... They get
looking for
to
the blade
Kelbid. Kelbid?
Kelbrid.
They get to Kelbrid space, and they are just they're just going around. For half a year. They are out there just looking, just like sort of zooming Marco. These last chapters are from Marco's perspective, and they just like zoom over 6 months of time until they find the fucking blade ship. It's right there, and they end up they look like a Yerk ship. Yeah. So they end up hailing them as like, hey, what's your Yerk ship doing out here?
Well, they have a cover story that they just send out to all alien spacecraft about like, oh, we're, the Enterprise. We're just on here on a galactic mission of like peace.
We're the Starship Enterprise.
We're just like exploration. Human controllers.
Yerks who had been on Earth would know what that is and like know it's a cover. And that's how they try to get their attention. And one time, and then they get hailed, and the commander of the blade ship is like, okay, Captain Picard, what are you going on about? And they put up Santarelli as the captain of the ship, and he's like, hey, I always thought of myself as more of a Kirk.
Santarelli is cool. He's like, he's quick on his feet. He rattles off some like numbers in a Yerk name. He talks about how, we just escaped, right? When the Andalites came, we've been wandering around for 3 years. We're just looking for like, anyone. And
we're looking for anyone. The Yerk Empire is gone. We're trying to get together as many Yerks as we can, and we heard you might be out here. And the other blade ship is like, that's actually fucking awesome. Yeah, we would love to join up with that. Will you subject yourself to the one?
Like, say what now?
The one. The power that we work for.
Qu'est-ce que c'est? What? Omelette de fromage?
And then the Yerk in the blade ship says, I will invoke him. And just turns his face to the sky like he's fucking praying. And then suddenly, the screen is instead of the blade ship.
Else.
It is eclipsed by a strange, staticky white light that shapes itself into like the faces of like aliens and feminine like humanoid women, and finally the face of Eximli Isgaruth Isthil split with a giant mouth that says, "I am the one. You will subject yourself to my command or be destroyed." And they're like, "What the fuck is going
He's like,
on?"
I know where you are. Like, your disguise didn't fool me, Jake the Year Killer. I can see that you're there. And like, its teeth are all red and it's really fucked up.
Yeah, and Marco's like, everything goes into slow-mo. At least this is the way I pictured it. And like everybody's just at their command, like at their spots, just waiting on Jake. And Jake's like, "This thing's got better guns.
Yeah.
This thing's got its shields up already, but we're faster."
He has a smile.
Yes,
Marco remarks that
smiling.
it looks like Rachel's
He's
smile.
smiling like Rachel. They've got better guns. They've got better shields, but we're faster. Ram the blade ship. And that's it.
And that's where
We're done. It truly is the beginning. The adventure never ends.
Yeah, that's why I was like, it's like it's all a denouement, except for the very end, where it's this weird cliffhanger. Which is like... And then, this is where we get this no lies this time. We do get a little letter from K.A. Applegate. She talks about the books. She talks about writing, 4 Chronicles, 5 Megamorphs. And I'm like, what the fuck? Where was the 5th Megamorph?
Did we miss something?
As far as I know, no. But please contact me if you know what the fuck she's talking about.
Yeah.
She kind of talks about just like the journey of writing a book. But now, this story has to end. It was my decision to end the Animorphs. But I'm going to think of all of the characters really fondly throughout my years. But also, in the meantime, check out my new book. And she ends it, "You may now demorph," which is cool. But I did always kind of dislike that the first chapter of Remnants was here at the end of in this book, at least the physical copy that I saw. Like, maybe not the ebook, but like the physical copy.
I didn't have it.
It was like, and it's like, I know you have to do that because you're a writer. You have to get people to buy your books if you want to survive. But, Catherine also wrote a second letter to people who didn't like the ending of Animorphs.
I retweeted it once without reading it to try to, like, hey, this will be here when I am done, and I can read what people thought. I'm definitely not going to actually find it, unless somebody puts it in the replies to this episode. Wink. I definitely won't actually be able to find it in my reply, in my history or whatever.
I'll briefly discuss it now. It kind of talks about how war sucks. It's like, well, you don't like how Animorphs ended with a lot of people dead and everybody sad and nobody really happy. Well, that's how war is. Like, you have to get out there and vote if you don't want wars to happen anymore. And I'm like, that's a really cool letter. That's really great. Fuck you to the haters. War sucks. But also, Catherine, that's not the only reason why people didn't like the ending of Animorphs. I think the main reason is this weird fucking Deus Ex Machina that comes out of nowhere. Like, what is this? Father's, like, long lost daughter or something?
I loved it. I really liked it.
You liked it?
I really liked it. Yeah, it's not... It's not a matter of...
Galaxy brain thinking here. Did the 5 who disappeared, did they all have sex together and become the one?
I don't... Maybe?
Anyway,
I don't know. But here's the thing. I really did like it. This ending was not about... It didn't need explaining. This wasn't a story... This wasn't a way... Like we talked about, the story ended in chapter 8. Like, the story ended in chapter 8. Everything was done. Everything after this was the beginning. This isn't K.A. and this isn't Catherine and Michael letting us know how literally all their lives came to a close or retired or whatever, because they're writing about a bunch of 17-year-olds. If they wanted to do that, like, who a bunch of 17-year-olds who still have superpowers. No, that's not what this is about. This is about them letting us know the war isn't over. The adventure never ends. And that is way more important to me than explaining every Star Trek villain they've run into. Than saying, oh, but like, how does Visser 1 get back? Oh, what is the 1? What were the 5? What were the 3? How did Father evolve? I don't care about the exact mechanics of this universe. And I understand where a lot of people can, like, be upset with that in the end, and, like, that's completely understandable. But every comic book is someone's first comic book. And every comic book is someone's last comic book. But the comics keep going after that. The stories keep going after that. And to pretend that there's any point, stories are, except in the most weird, kooky versions of events, stories are about people's lives in most cases. And most stories don't end with a death. And so most lives don't end at the end of the story. And Animorphs does not end with the end of the story. It's, in many ways, this is the prototypical serialized story. It does not end at the end. It begins again. I'm ranting, trying to find a point, but I think what I am trying to say is this book is called The Beginning. If you thought that, and it has been about child soldiers in a war where they might get stuck as termites and being manipulated by literally God and the devil the entire time. If you thought that this is a story that could just end in the traditional way, I think you were incorrect all along. And I'm going to stop talking because I feel like I've just put my foot in my mouth in a big way, telling people. But that is what I'm passionate about in this story.
I'm glad you liked the ending.
Yes.
Then.
Yes.
There's so much more that we could talk about this book, but we are going to save that for next week, because next week is going to be our complete series wrap up. And because this book is the end of the book in such a long denouement, it has a lot of good discussion points that will be better suited for the end of the series wrap-up kind of thing.
And of course, our very last ever Animorphs ER. Tessa, how would you fight God?
Kill him with kindness, yo.
Yeah, kick his ass.
If you want to give us questions that we will answer, you can find it. I got a pinned tweet on our Twitter. We've got a post on Facebook. Put your questions there. You can also email us, and you can check out our back catalog and all of the cool Animorphs memes that we've made over the years on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, or Facebook.
This is normally where I tell you guys to subscribe on iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts, or else something bad that's a reference to the rest of the podcast will happen. But I don't know if that really matters here in the file. Just go ahead and Google our podcast and just look at it on the internet.
You know what you can do is you just finished reading book 54, and you know what you should do is start by reading book 1 again. Just go right back. Get right back into it.
Pretend that when they rammed the blade ship, the 1 is actually like a sentient Serio rip. And they literally have been thrown back in time to the beginning of the events of the Animorphs.
That is a fan theory. There are so many fanfics jumping off from this point, because how could you not? Am I right? So go check those out if you need your Animorphs fix. But for us here and now at almost the end of it all, my name is Tessa, the expert.
And I'm Braden. Thank you for everything.
And this has been Phantomorphs, the Dork-Bajir Chronicles.
Which is a misnomer because there's one more story to tell. The story never ends, baby!